I'm Dr. Carol Talbot, the creator and founder of the Possibility Hub, taking you beyond the boundaries of who you believe yourself to be and opening up to new possibilities. My guest in this episode is Sean Callahan, CEO of USA MedBed and Healthy Life Technology. After witnessing firsthand the struggles of those facing chronic illness, mobility challenges, dis-ease, Sean expanded his focus beyond conventional medical equipment. And today, he pioneers cutting-edge healing technologies that support cellular regeneration, detoxification, as well as holistic well-being. And in this conversation, we're going to explore MedBeds, terahertz wands, plasma energy, scalar fields, and so much more. Let's get started. Hello, Sean, and welcome to the Possibility Hub. And just by looking at where you are right now, I am super jealous because you seem to be surrounded by the most vibrant amethyst crystals. Amethyst, anybody who knows me knows I love purple, full stop. So, of course, amethyst and being bathed in that energy. And when we were speaking before, I was saying, when you see crystals, sometimes when you go to stores or places, they're covered in dust or they look very unhappy. And you think about, the human and the human vessel, and that if it's kept in an environment or a workspace or place, then it doesn't thrive. But your crystals look like they are thriving. Tell me more.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Carol. So, crystals are just, I love them personally. Like for me, they are just absolutely divine little entities of consciousness. And what's so amazing is not only do I love the color and I love the energy, but I love the history. And getting into Nikola Tesla, who did a lot of work with crystals, who really found them to be conscious energy fields. And then you get into Marcel Vogel back in the 70s and the 80s, and Marcel Vogel took it to a whole nother level. So for me, I want to be immersed in that really good energy. I feel like it's really important to have a work environment that's conducive to what you're doing. And to me, these are all little people that are all hanging out with me that I'm talking to, making sure they're happy. I don't really have to feed them or take them for walks, but I love the energy. I love them here. And, I do really love the fact that it's all sacred geometry, and I've got them all over. You can see quite a few in the picture, but I showed you earlier, my whole room is nothing but crystals. So I love the energy. I love just the feeling of coming in here. And yes, there you go. There you go. So, in fact, I'll just give you a quick little peek here again, but, the whole desktop is covered with crystals. I've got some manifestation crystals that I've got over on the other side over there. But I feel like that work environment for me is conducive to the field that I'm in, which is energy, frequency, vibration, technology. And as you saw there in that little clip that I just showed you, I'm also very deeply involved still in the medical industry, where I deal a lot with ICU patients that are dealing with ALS, MS, quadriplegic, paraplegic. And so giving people energy and frequency-based technology can be done in many ways, but it could be done as simple as sending a lot of love into a crystal and giving that to a person as a gift. And so, there's a lot of different ways that I interact with crystals, but I greatly appreciate the comment and the feedback. And as you can see, I'm a purple person myself.
And of course, they say crystals hold memory.
Yes.
So again, it's very important when you receive a crystal to communicate with it. And I think we forget, rather than just being rocks, everything is alive. Everything has consciousness, everything. And
everything.
That, you said everything's about energy, frequency, oscillation, and vibration. And, we forget that we are frequency. As well. So energy is the building blocks of all matter. And, while we appear solid and we find more appreciation in things that appear solid, energy can come in many, many different forms. And What particularly excited me and interested me about your work, and what you're creating, what you're doing, is, we're in a world where biohacking is a buzzword. I prefer to go a little bit deeper into bioregenesis myself. However, with biohacking, it's more about, more supplements, another IV drip, and so most people have got a cupboard full, absolutely stocked full of supplements. Yet the missing link is the energy, because those supplements also carry an energy signature from
Yes.
how they were prepared, where they came from, how they were manufactured. So I feel this era really is about technology, which can shift and help people deal with frequencies. So you're the founder of USA MedBeds. Tell us a little bit more about them, because there's been over the last couple of years a lot about MedBeds, organ printing. I was just seeing a movie at the weekend called Mickey 17. I don't know whether it's come out in your part of the world yet, but basically he's an expendable in the space program, and so he's just reprinted with all his memories.
Yeah.
So there's many different versions of MedBeds that people are talking about. What's your version, and how does it support people?
I love that. And I'm going to answer that question. One quick thing I have to show you, though. This is a little patch of crystals. And this little patch, which I wear right on the top of my vertebrae, what it does is your light energy coming off your body, your aura, hits the crystals in this patch. It reflects them back into your body, and it activates copper peptides, which activate stem cells. So for me and you and adults that are in our 30s or 40s, or maybe a little higher, right?
I was just going to say, being so generous.
Yeah, right. We got to have some fun here too, right, Dr. Carol? So that's another beautiful way crystals right now are being used, is something as simple as little patches where they can reflect that back and activate stem cells. But I can get into the MedBed thing also with you.
Those patches, the LifeWave ones.
They are.
Okay.
I've been wearing those now.
Is it the X something 39?
X39.
Okay, there's also some other ones that I heard about recently that are meant to be quite good. They're by Patch MD. I don't know whether you've come across those mainly to do with supplements, and they're a lot cheaper than the LifeWave ones, which many people say are a little expensive, but they do last a couple of days. And I also know when I was recently at a Chinese medical center, they had some other patches that have been developed out of Spain that were also really, really good and lasted about 3 days.
You know what the beauty of all those patches are? Is that they're utilizing the light energy coming off our body and reflecting it back, right? So it's, when you think of us as light creatures, light entities, light beings, which is kind of how you started off with looking at us as the spiritual light being, these are really taking advantage of it. And this is modern cutting edge technology. And Dr. Carol, what are they doing? They're using crystals.
Exactly.
So isn't that beautiful? Because now we're going back in history. Now we're going back to, the early days of the history of England, when all the royalty wore these different crowns, but they had all these beautiful jewels that were put on the third eye and all these arrangements. And this was done very, very knowledgeable way. They were making this in a very knowledgeable way. This takes us back to Egypt. This goes into Atlantis, for all those people out there. But isn't it funny that we're talking about modern day technology and we're still dealing with something as beautiful, as magnificent as the crystal?
Other ways that you can work the crystal, you've ignited another memory in me that many years ago, there was somebody coming here, a tattoo artist from Russia, and the technology coming out of Russia is incredible, despite what else is going on in Russia. But she also, the tattoos were with crystals. In particular, emerald and citrine, and so it's faded, but you can probably see I have a little tattoo there. And it's actually crystal, and she also put some crystals in there as well. But there's no mark or anything like that. But my view at that time was, if I'm sun gazing, and I have crystals there, then it's absorbing more solar energy. So there's many, many different ways to think about crystals, and, crystals in computer chips. And I mean, then we go into Tesla's work for energy. There's many different directions we could go here.
And what's interesting I love that technology, and I love Russian people, and they are very brilliant, as you said. But it's also interesting with your third eye, your pineal, where they put that, when you're sending out thoughts and you're doing manifestation, when the energy goes out the other way, you're basically energizing that plasma energy field that you're using to manifest. So it's making you a very powerful manifestation person as well. That is absolutely amazing. I think that's really cool. That's a great story. But we can get into the MedBeds. I'm sorry to
MedBeds. Yeah. And also you've got some other, what shall I call, bells and whistles and other things to show us that look absolutely amazing. We're going to have a great conversation.
So we have some of the most state-of-the-art cutting-edge technology on the planet in this facility. A lot of it is plasma energy technology, plasma being your consciousness, plasma being the sun, plasma being lightning, thunder, and consciousness. And so we have technology where you create plasma energy fields, and you're in the energy field, and it's actually a mindful and intelligent energy field. And the beauty of this, Dr. Carol, is that these devices are inscribed in hieroglyphics in Egypt. So it's quite clear that these people were using this thousands of years ago. We're rediscovering it now as we develop once again as a society, but the actual technology itself is described in hieroglyphics. And that gets into the MedBed, my version, I would say, of the MedBed technology as I know it from a lot of study and a lot of years doing this. So it actually is a very good starting point as Egypt, because right now there's 300-ton megalithic stones that were perfectly carved, that were perfectly placed, that even to this day we still cannot do. There was an experiment in Los Angeles years ago where they tried to move a 100-ton stone to a museum in downtown Los Angeles. It took them like 50 cranes, and it was an absolutely massive undertaking to move a stone that was still not even close to some of the biggest stones being moved and carved and placed in Egypt and various different monolithic sites. So it's very clear that these people were very advanced. And the story goes, when it comes to the pyramids, is that the pyramids were actually built by off-planet technology and off-planet civilizations. And originally they were built to stabilize the Earth's atmosphere, because there was a lot of things going on out there. And if you're familiar with the Kuiper Belt, which is just a big, massive amount of boulders, that actually at one time was a planet. And these off-planet civilizations were battling with each other. They blew that thing up. But to make a long story short, they put these pyramids in to stabilize the Earth's atmosphere. It was the first free energy system. And it also had a lot of other benefits, obviously, with healing. If you're familiar with the Bosnian pyramid, there's a gentleman named Sam Brazanovich who, underneath those tunnels, they've had thousands and thousands and thousands of what they would call miraculous healings. But the energy fields underneath the pyramids are also very powerful, and they found those to be very beneficial for people's health. So when you're talking about, advanced technology and MedBeds, it's hard to get into that without getting into off-planet civilizations and talking about that subject. So that's kind of where the whole thing starts. Now, a lot of the MedBeds that we're talking about today are coming from people that have been in various different programs that we would just say are sort of black ops type programs, where various governments are utilizing various high-end technologies, and they're doing all different types of healing, and they're using different healing modalities with this very advanced technology to basically do miraculous things for people when it comes to healing and all these different things. So the actual MedBeds themselves are very powerful pods or technologies that are technically out there, but they're being used right now by a very small group of people, and primarily, very specialized programs. but they are intentionally going to be coming out apparently sometime in the future, which I don't get too far down that rabbit hole because personally for
Me
me,
neither. I don't
yeah,
feel that
all I care about is
release.
what's here, what's now available, right? Because someday, somewhere, that's great. But the beautiful part about that is that you have the work of Nikola Tesla, you have the work of Royal Raymond Rife, Georges Lakosky. There was a gentleman out of France, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Antoine Prairie, but these people were working with very powerful energy fields, and they were doing semi-miraculous things up to even more than 100 years ago. And so when you're getting into the technologies of what's available now, it sort of does get into sort of medbed type technology because you're talking about light energy, frequency, photon energy. There's a system, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with, called an EE system. Those have been pretty much sold all over the world. I want to say there's 1,500 of them now around the world that are basically rooms where you have four sets of lasers from four corners that collide. And when they collide in the middle of that room, they create a scalar energy field. And scalar energy being a very beneficial frequency for the body. And then what they do is they run TV sets that throw off photons and light energy for DNA. But these technologies have advanced quite a bit. The technology that I'm working with is, which is with a scientist and a physicist named Dan Winter, is some of the most powerful technology on the planet. Dan Winter is a dear friend. I love him. He's a very knowledgeable person. And Dan has basically, dedicated his life to educating people on how the interaction of physics works with your everyday life and what's around you. But one of the things that Dan has developed is the dual tube plasma energy systems, where you have two tubes sending a signal in the middle, which we would call pine cones kissing noses, meaning that it's centipedal. The signals are spiraling in, and when they hit the middle and implode and connect, they also create this energy field. And this is being done with plasma energy. So what's happening is that plasma energy field is becoming recursive, meaning it's forming the shape of a heart. And as it becomes recursive and it starts cycling, it taps into the frequency of your DNA, and it becomes a mindful and intelligent energy field, meaning that intention and other things are very important to really get the full benefit of this technology. And in addition to having benefits for rejuvenation of the body, where it really goes, where this whole thing really goes, Dr. Carol, and I know you'll love this because this taps into everything that you're about. It gets into enhancing intuition. It gets into clairvoyance. It goes into enhancing empathy. It goes into lucid dreaming. It goes into raising the vibration of our spiritual bodies to make us more in tune, more loving, more compassionate, and enhancing the natural gifts that we've been given with these spiritual forms that we're in. So this technology, although it does start a lot and very beneficial for bodily things, it's really the spiritual essence of, reaching frequencies where you can tap into Akashic records, reaching into frequencies where your mom calls you, but you were just thinking about your mom, and then bang, now there's a phone call there, and all these beautiful things, and becoming a more loving and compassionate person. So, there's a lot of benefits, a lot of medbed technology, but the technology that's actually available right now, some of the most powerful technology is coming with these dual tube plasma systems, and they run massive bandwidths of frequencies. I actually have an app right here on my phone that will allow me to, I can basically dial in any frequency set that I want. And first of all, we can do a scan. So I can scan your entire body within about 7 minutes on a quick one, 30 minutes on a more long, detailed one. But I can immediately find areas of the body that need some attention. And then once I've got that scan done and I've done that, then I'm able to start adjusting frequency sets. I don't know if you can see this here, but this app runs on a...
Is that's not the Genius Insight app, is it? No.
It's not.
No.
And I'm sorry, I'm kind of awkward here, but
Yeah.
But I can scroll through and say, oh, I want to do the heart, or I want to do the lungs, or I want to do the pineal, or I can liver, whatever. So, so having the scanning technology, and the important thing about the scanning technology is that we can do clear before and afters. So I can run a scan on you, and then I can say, okay, well, what do we got here? And then I can go into use the Tesla multi-wave oscillators. I've got a celestial chamber that has 7 different modalities that it runs. I've got Dan's newest technology, which is the Phi Ray, which is the most powerful piece of technology I have. I've got red light technology. I've got Dan has another item called the plasma spheres, and those scanners also do run corrective frequencies. So I can do a before and after, and I can show clear, tangible data that there's been improvement from using the technology. It's not, did you feel something or this or that? And, interesting enough for me, when I had the scan done originally, which is about a year ago, it showed up that my pancreas and different parts of internal organs needed some TLC. They needed some love and attention. But I wouldn't have known that had I not done the scan. I would say, oh, I'm perfectly fine, which I am. But, there's things in the body that, get out of balance and what have you. And so now, after being able to do that, I can adjust frequency sets for those different things. That's not necessarily an area where I've got a lot of feeling, which is my internal organs. But I do know that those are areas that I need to focus and send some additional loving energy to. And so, the beauty of the technology isn't just what it can do. It's the ability to actually know where you're at and, kind of what your physical condition is. And there's a lot of technologies that do that. We have one obviously here that's very sophisticated, but, I think the goal is with everything. And in my world, the goal is not to need a med bed, right? The goal is to get out in front of things like you were talking about nutrition earlier. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but when you go here in the States to go get vitamins, as we were speaking about, the vast majority of vitamins that are being offered to the general public are synthetic. They're not actually real vitamins. It's actually just a chemical compound that it's not even something like vitamin C. I've said this before. I'm out of town. I try to find vitamin C. I've got 6 or 7 choices. These are at the biggest chain stores in the States. 6 out of 7 are synthetic forms of vitamin C. They're not actually being derived from oranges. So
that's the reason that you're better off running frequencies if you find that your body needs something like that, because most supplements you might as well just flush down the toilet, and
Right.
then we go into the toxins and additives in our food. So getting it even from the food these days is very challenging. And as I think I'm a breatharian, I'm source fed, so I use prana and energy to nourish myself on the main. I just want to backtrack slightly here because I want to take it back down to basics, because we tend to assume that people understand what scalar energy is and plasma energy, and because it's often talked about in this kind of realm. Yet most people kind of like understand energy, frequency, and how would you explain plasma energy, scalar energy to people who are not sure of what it means in terms of these devices?
So the easiest way to think about scalar energy is it's the beneficial energy coming from the sun that makes plants grow. If you took a copper wire and just a little piece of copper, put it on the rooftop of a building and ran that wire down into a plant that was in the basement, and the plant got no light, by simply getting the scalar energy coming from the light, it would grow the plant. So scalar energy is the energy that really,
it's everywhere.
That makes everything grow, like everything. And it's a necessary frequency for us for rejuvenation. And, that's probably the easiest way to think about it, because it's very beneficial. It's very good for us as our bodies for regenerating and staying healthy. And so it's what makes plants grow and everything else. When it comes to plasma energy, plasma is a very interesting energy because, like you said, most of us don't know a lot about it. And you have, four states of matter, technically. You have solid, liquid, gas. But when gas gets hit with a lot of energy, it converts it into plasma. So plasma is technically the fourth state of matter. So things like a thunderstorm is actually a conscious and mindful, intelligent energy field. That's plasma. The sun itself is a conscious, living entity, and the sun is a plasma field, plasma energy field. And I think it's beautiful because as much as we talk about the future, we have to go back to the past. And for somebody like myself that's been to Chichen Itza, that studied ancient Aztec, ancient, Egyptian, a lot of those civilizations, they all worship the sun god, right?
Yes.
And when I'm younger, I'm like, oh, that's cool. They love the sun. That's great. It made their plants grow. But these people were super highly intelligent. They were, Dr. Carol, if you're here in the States, and I know you've got a lot of history there, indigenous people, Native American Indians they talk to trees. Trees are also conscious living entities. And so what's the difference between people that can talk to them and people that don't talk to them? First off, they know that they can, and they're brought up that way. And they're learning that from a very early age. They're grounded, they're in tune with nature. And that's one of the things that is really sad, that in our day and age, as modern as we are, we've broken away from the reality of the environment around us.
We're placed in a very limited paradigm where those kind of abilities are relegated to the fantasy movies, superhuman abilities, but really put into fantasy and fiction and not into our reality. And I feel it's really, really sad that we're just placed and programmed and conditioned in this very limited box.
The beauty of what you're doing, though, is you're breaking people out of the box. Because the thing that breaks them out of the box is the knowledge. It's the information and knowledge that there is more there, and you are super powerful, and we're all superhuman. We all have these abilities. So, something like going out walking through the woods, well, every tree being grounded has a massive energy field around it. Not only is it a conscious entity, but it's also a very powerful aura and field of energy. So you're walking through the woods, you've got hundreds of trees that are all combining these energy fields, and it's literally charging your light body. It's charging your aura, your energy field, which is made of plasma energy. And now you're grounding and you're bringing in that earth frequency, which eliminates inflammation. That's why, the more modern things get, the more the beauty of going back into going back to the power of crystals and the power of just what's around us. The ultimate medbed is the earth. That's the ultimate medbed.
Yes, and I saw you also have grounding mats on your website as well. Do. So when we talk about, the medbeds, and even grounding, I'm remembering a story of somebody who was very sick, and one of the indigenous tribes, they buried him in the ground, just kept his head above for several days.
Yes.
And when he was taken out, as scary as it had been, he was completely cured.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the results that you're seeing, because you said to me right at the beginning that you're working with people who are in ICU, they may be quadriplegics, that sadly, often people only come to alternative technology when they've exhausted the allopathic route and it's not done what it's been promised to do.
The beauty of the technology is that nothing works if the mind isn't programmed for the outcome that you're looking for.
So it's a holistic approach.
It has to be, because the mind, first of all, is incredibly powerful. That mind needs to be put, before the technology can even come into play, the mind must be there to acknowledge that you can achieve anything and everything is possible. I don't know if you're familiar with Neville Goddard, but Neville Goddard, every single speech he starts with, God, all things are possible. With God, all things are possible. And the healing and the health and the wellness, it all starts in the mind first. And then with that, with the mind already visioning and clearly seeing the outcome as it needs to be, then the technology can do its place. If you're trying to work with people that are mentally shut down, that are all about no, 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 and they're very negative, even the most powerful technology that we've got is still going to have to overcome some serious things. If you're familiar with the work of Masaru Emoto, the mind can actually program a molecule of water and turn it into the most beautiful snowflake if the mind is programmed with love and it's programmed in the right way. You can also turn water into a negative blob simply by your thought. So
and
if
of
your
course,
mind,
we're predominantly water. So, again, when you think of your own endogenous water in your cells, what's the messages that's being communicated to the water in your cells? And of course, we started off with energy, your energy field, so that any dis-ease to come into physical form has had to come through the different energy levels and energy layers till it manifests in physical form. So there's lots of different ways of looking. You've got to look at any issue from a holistic point of view, from mental, emotional, spiritual, as well as the physical, whereas most allopathic medicine looks just at the physical and doesn't address all the other parts too. So I'm sure, though, you've seen people who, because they've seen the results in other people, it shifts their mindset and then it opens the door. So, for example, I run what many people call some weird events like firewalking. And people say, well, why? And it's basically because it shifts people's mindset that if I can do that, something I've been taught is impossible, yet I do it completely unharmed. What else have I been taught and told that's wrong? So that's the reason I ask in terms of, what results you've got. And I appreciate that there needs to be, all levels taken into account. But the more levels, right? You can give those, this is what happened to this person, it opens the door. Or maybe, you've got a light on dimmer switch. It starts to switch it up a little so it glows a little brighter and people start to see the possibilities.
And that's all we need is just a glow. Right. That's all we need is just the glow. The biggest issue right now, what's interesting with all the technology that's available and all the abilities that are there, if you like a lot of people when I run into them and they need that high end medical equipment that I've got next to me, half the people have given up. They have given up and they are not open to anything. And, even if I'm going to try to work with them on a quantum level, knowing or unknowingly, I need them to know that there's hope. I need them to know that anything and everything is possible. I need them to just open up to the possibility that, yes, maybe this can happen. The word hope is such an important word for what I do. And that's for the people that are right on the brink of checking out, right? Those are the people that I deal with on a daily basis. I sell those.
What have you seen in terms of, and what have you witnessed that you can share with us? Yes, I was going to ask you to move your camera around so we can see.
Yeah, I want to show you. These are the ICU beds we sell. Those are the highest end beds that you get in hospitals. I also do a lot of stuff with doctor offices. I set up entire hospitals. I do a lot of work overseas. I'm working on projects right now in the Philippines, Guatemala, Mexico, where I set up the entire hospital and outfit it. But I do a lot of work, as I was saying earlier, with the medical beds, because we're one of the only companies in the USA that if you come out of the hospital and you need a high-end patient care, that I've got the stuff for you at home. And the only people that need that are the people in the greatest need. But over the years, I've seen things that are semi-miraculous where people have had a very hard time walking. They can't do this. And and soon they're like, not sometimes soon, sometimes within a day or 2 days, sometimes within a month or 2 months. Every process is different. The thing is that there's a lot of variables that come into play on how fast things can happen. But if the body gets what the body needs, the body naturally wants to go into homeostasis. The body naturally wants to be perfect and be in a perfect modality. So if you can give it the energy, the love, and you can give it the vision of what it needs to do, you can do it. Like anything and everything's possible. there's never a circumstance that I run across where I say, oh, I'll never be able to do that. I go into every situation where I will and I am. And there's not even an inkling of doubt. And if I can bring them along with me for that ride, even if they're not as dialed in as I am, if I can show them a little benefit, then it's like a snowball. It's like, wow, I've never been able to move my knee that way. Oh, I've never got out of bed that way. Oh, my back feels a lot better. Oh, and then all of a sudden it starts going, well, if that's possible, and then all of a sudden, then you start.
Exactly. Yeah. It opens the door. So there's the MedBeds, but there's also some more, I guess, portable devices that you have, those terahertz
wands.
Or terahertz, yes. And I think you've got some lovely things to show us as well.
I do. Well, I gotta, if I'm dealing with people in the UK, I've got to show you some cool stuff, man. But this is more sacred geometry. This is actually sort of a manifestation tool.
That's a
and this gets
one.
into a lot of sacred geometry, right? And, these are all things like there's actually Walter Russell here in the States was a gentleman that was brilliant, that developed a lot of things that you create these energy fields. And when you create the energy fields, something as simple as agriculture and the plants and all the things around it in a field grow 20 to 25% faster because you're putting them in a conducive environment for them. Hey, Kyle, can you grab me a terahertz wand? You can put them in an environment that's conducive for growth and help them. And so I've got a couple of them in here. I actually got a bunch of these things, but I use these, sometimes just to center myself. I do this sometimes just to manifest different things. Sometimes it's good for just stabilizing. I've got
and of course I love the spiral, and the spiral creating a toroidal field as well as what is right now.
Exactly.
Because
and so what it does is and this is all
geometry naturally resonates with the way that our body naturally moves. So all you're doing is enhancing our energy field through these geomancies.
You're giving the body what the body needs to be healthy. You're giving the body the energy and the environment that it needs to be perfectly healthy. And in fact, it gets into certain things too. I wear an amethyst copper bracelet, which is also very similar. Somewhere down here in this mix of all these things I got on my neck. I also have another, I don't know if you can see that, but I have another energy device that's another amethyst that also has the little toroidal emblems and circles on it. And but when it comes to when we're breaking away from the crystals, the actual thing that's interesting about the terahertz wands is that they're all
just for people who are not seeing the image of this, if you're listening into this podcast, it looks like a big torch. Basically, it looks like a torch.
Yeah. I would almost say
more than a torch.
like a hairdryer on steroids. I'm going to turn this on for just a sec to give you just a vision of it.
Yeah. So how does someone work with something like that? They switch it on like a torch, and then is it like red light therapy, but that's blue light or?
You're exactly right. So basically what it is, it's throwing energy down the tube of the unit. And that energy field penetrates about 7 to 8 inches into the body itself. So you can do it a lot for superficial types of things. But what the technology actually is terahertz frequency, which is an optimal frequency that your cells vibrate at. If you look at the beauty, once again, the multi-wave oscillator developed by Tesla, well, actually really developed by Georges Lakhovsky, but originally started by Tesla. What they found is that the vibrational rate of the cell determines the health of the cell. A healthy cell vibrates at 15,000 vibrations per second. That's an optimal frequency for a very healthy cell. But when people are getting really sick, the cell vibrations drop to 10,000. And then when you're really close and really, really in bad shape, you're down to 5,000. So they figured out
technology to measure what frequency their cells are oscillating and vibrating at?
I don't have that, but I do have the scanner, which shows me the condition of all the internal organs and body parts and cells. But when Lakhovsky and Tesla, when they developed this thing, they knew that if they could restore cells back to their original healthy vibration, they could restore people back to health. And so the terahertz frequency that's in this is basically getting cells to their optimal dance, I guess is what I like to say. It's their optimal dance frequency that makes them happy. And it sends energy with the terahertz frequency, with quartz crystal, with red light, and then the blue light that you saw. And so it's a culmination of multiple things that are happening at the same time. But what it's doing is it's enhancing circulation, cellular optimization for function, detoxification, and cellular regeneration.
I was going to ask about detoxification because, again, we know that, the body, the cells of the body need energy to repair the DNA and keep the body healthy. And most people, when you ask them why do they eat, they say for energy. And you also know the fact of the matter is we don't directly get any energy from the food that we eat, and very, very little anyway. It has to go through a convoluted process called ATP to make ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So the key really is, how do you energize your cells? And if your cells and the receptors on the cells are all clogged up, which for many people, based on what they eat, their lifestyle, the air that we breathe, the toxins in our water, stress, there's a multitude of reasons, their cells are not able to do what they're designed to do or absorb energy. So I liked the fact that you said that these devices also detox, so that the cells are happy cells, like happy crystals, and can do what they do best and do what they're designed to do, which is to repair the DNA, keep you healthy, and give you energy.
Exactly. And it's interesting because the cells are there to perform thousands of different functions. And all they're asking for is you to give them what they need to run at their optimal performance. And the key thing, I think, what also you just said is that, people are eating a lot of this processed food that has zero energy. It's actually sapping energy from your body just to process it, where you eat living live food and it gives the energy back into the body. But, the goal, once again, is to use the technology to enhance and do certain things, but also, manage and be balanced in all those different aspects. The terahertz one is used a lot for pain, stiffness, soreness, arthritis. People use it a lot for spider veins. It's being used for Crohn's. It's being used for a lot of hair, facial stuff. Red light, as you know, is really good for skin and wrinkles, and but a lot of people are using it for hair growth and shingles. But it's just a very powerful energy field that you're putting into the body. There's been people that have used the wand, and I've got on my YouTube channel, I've got probably at least 30, maybe 35 testimonials. There's a couple stories in there that are so powerful they broke me down and started crying. Because I really have no idea what this technology is doing when it gets out of my hands. I mean, we send this technology out all over the world, and a lot of times it goes out and I don't hear back from people. Not that it's good or bad, just in the course of life. But then, I do get back with people, or they get back to me and they tell me these stories of, how they're just at a 9-level pain or 10-level pain, and they start using these devices and this technology, and it breaks them down. And for anybody out there that knows, what that's like, and I do, because I'm sure most of us at some point in life have dealt with that, being in extreme pain does so much when it breaks you down. It makes you tired, you're grouchy. It takes everything out of you to just put a smile on your face. And so for a little handheld device, and these things honestly are not that expensive. They start off around $350. There's more that are, more, but that's not that much money for a device that has all that ability. And so I often tell people, if you're dealing with issues that are pain related, there's a lot of stuff that's out there that you can do that with. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can help. You were also talking about the energy field, and our energy Well, when you're young, when you're 30 years old, you're running around with about 100 millivolts of energy in your body. So you want to get up and run and dance and do everything. Well, when you're 70 years old, you've got 30 to 40 millivolts of electrical energy. And so, when you get sick and you have no energy, you don't, because your body's taking the energy saying, we're going to use that to heal and get better. And once you're done, we'll put it back in the system and you can go out for walks and do what you want to do. The reason I bring that up is because I want to go back to technology that's over 100 years old, which is the multi-wave oscillator. And in addition to restoring the oscillation rate of the cell, it's basically sending electrical energy into the body. And that electrical energy is, also directly connected to the earth, which goes back to the story about that person that was buried, which indigenous people did all the time to heal people. They literally buried them in a pit with hay, and they filled them up and had a campfire there. The natural frequency and energy from the earth, which is the greatest medbed ever, is also very good for healing. It's also very good for charging and sending electrical energy in your body. And so, people talk about medbeds. I think they're phenomenal. I'm deeply involved in them. I've got them all over my place. I mean, I'm using some of the most sophisticated technology on the planet Earth, but that's never an excuse not to be out there in nature. That's never an excuse not to be out there grounding. That's never, I don't want people to live an unhealthy life and then come running to me saying, oh, I need a med bed. Yeah, you need a med bed because you're not eating right. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not getting out in the sun. You're not doing any of these things. And then you're going to use a med bed and go back to that. And then you'll be back again in 2 years. So the goal, as I've said earlier, is to not need it. Of course, there's a lot of benefits. The goal, obviously, for most people is to maintain good health and to enhance your spiritual abilities with clairvoyance, empathy, love, compassion, and all engaging in the God-given things you can do, like lucid dream, astral projection, all these things that you have the ability to do, that somewhere along the way people said, no, you can't do that. You bought into that and put yourself in the box. And with Dr. Carol here, you're taking everybody out of the box. You're saying, oh, there's the door, jump out of the box, and you're bringing in these brilliant people.
Well, it's time to question what's really possible. And often, as you said, it's pain or it's crisis or chaos that creates that evolution. And I wanted just two more questions. The first one is, what brought you into this field? Were you always interested in this, or was it, a breakdown in your own system or pain that you said, hey, I'm going to search for something different to bring you into this field? Because, I know that you're really passionate about it, and you're passionate about bringing it to more areas in the world, not just in the US, and to more people to become aware of frequency and healing and what's available, rather than having a cupboard full of supplements or being addicted to painkillers. So what brought you into this field right back at the beginning?
The earliest part would be in my 20s, when I just got big into metaphysics, right? I was huge into crystals, but the biggest thing actually taps into something you talked about earlier, which is getting deep into Vedic knowledge, getting very deep into Vedic knowledge. So I live next to a I guess we would call them a Hindu temple, although Hindu, to me, everything's Vedic, but it's a Hindu temple because, you had the deities and Krishna and all the different things there. But through that led me to a path where I started meeting a lot of really amazing yogis and sadhus and spiritual people.
Well, you've basically got the cities, haven't you, which are the superhuman abilities.
The Siddha Mahatmas that had mastered all these different abilities where they could do all these things that we talked about. And if you're in India, that's a normal process. I mean, that's like, you can go into those realms and go with those sadhus, and you can learn these things. It's very much like us going to college where, but for those people, them is a tradition that's been going on for thousands of years. So when you start looking at the ability that we have as spiritual beings, as entities, that we can turn that on, and that there's a process to develop that, then you get back to what I was saying earlier. Anything and everything is always possible. Infinite possibilities, infinite miracles. You create your reality on a moment to moment basis. And the minute you say something is what it is, you're creating that reality. And so when you understand the power of that, that becomes, very, very, very life changing. But then, go to what I go to, which is saying, okay, I'm in the medical industry. I'm dealing with people every day that are really messed up. First of all, there's got to be something out there that can help these people. You got to the grounding sheets and the grounding technology. That's the first thing you're going to do. You do that if you're healthy, because when you're grounded, sleeping, deeper REM sleep, reducing inflammation, all these amazing things. But now it's like, I'm dealing with people on a daily basis. What can I do? What can I layer in to make their life better? How do I help these people in a way where I don't have to get into all this crazy talk about med beds and all that? Because as much as it's cool and it's real, a lot of people aren't quite there yet. Everybody is at a different stage of development, mentally, spiritually, physically. And I have to go with the core basics, which is, this is a blanket that'll help you. You'll sleep better. I don't even need to give them a lot of data on it, because sometimes it really isn't even relevant. I just need them to use it. And so through that process, and then hearing about the med beds, I'm like, well, I want to know all about it. I want to deep dive into it. And what I did is I became a student. I said, I'm going back to college. The college is going to be learning everything about wellness, technology, all the stuff that I'm learning and have learned in the last 5 years on what is a terahertz wand, what is scalar energy. I didn't know anything 5 years ago, even though I would consider myself somewhat intelligent. This is not the knowledge base that we're given when we're going through traditional education. And so it was hard. I mean, nothing that I do in the medical industry translates into the physics of all this other medbed type. It's completely different. The terminology is different. What it's doing is different. And so I became a student, and my goal was to help as many people as possible. And I always said, Dr. Carroll, if I help one person, it was worth it. And then I helped that one person, and I said, wow, that was amazing. That made me feel so good. Well, I'm going to help somebody else. And then I'm out there running around like a goofball with a bunch of terahertz wands, and I see people limping, they're in bad shape. I'm like, hey, try this. And, then I'm out, with my friends and people I know saying, hey, man, what's wrong with your hip? Oh, wow, you fell. And there was a girl that worked across the street where I lived, and she was a waitress. And I frequent that restaurant a lot, so I obviously know everybody in there. And I said, well, you need to use this terahertz wand, because she's on her feet all day and she's limping, and I can see that, then I'm getting her back to normal, and she's walking and feeling better. And, I go on that mission, and it's the ultimate force, the ultimate power, and the most beneficial frequency on the planet is love. It's 432 hertz. And when you're giving love and you're giving compassion, and it comes back, it is just so invigorating. I mean, it's like, it's the most powerful thing. And then it's like, this is my life. This is my mission. This is what I'm going to do. And sometimes it's a little bumpy, technically, because, this isn't something that's mainstream. But that's okay. I love everybody for where they are, who they are, what they believe. It doesn't matter to me at all.
No, and sometimes the time is right. And this is where, you say the person in the restaurant that you go to may not normally be the type of person who would think about a terahertz wand. But again, it opens the door, it switches up the light a little bit more, and they start getting curious. Sometimes the worst of times in our life open us up to explore areas that we never would have considered before. Right. And you've highlighted, the gift of being able to give and contribute is such a reward in itself, such a reward. And that's the reason that I guess we all do what we do. So based on what you've said, there's people could go with a grounding mat, there's obviously the med beds, and there's all the other things that you have, those beautiful wands. And I'm sensing that a good first base for people, rather than buying another supplement or taking another painkiller, would be the terahertz wand.
The terahertz wand would definitely be one of the top ones. I think the grounding technology initially is probably one of the best ones also because it reduces inflammation. I deal a lot with people that have chronic back pain and chronic knee pain and that. And the wand and the grounding are going to be one and two the most powerful for addressing that. And the grounding should be done by everybody, even kids. I mean, if you know that, your brain waves run at the Schumann resonance, which is the frequency that the earth runs on, which I would just refer to as a slow rolling wave. That is your brain frequency. That is the same frequency that the earth runs on. So when you're getting hit with a lot of, various Wi-Fi and electronics, it throws off the wavelengths on the brain. And so when you're grounding, when you sleep, it's putting you right back into that natural slow rolling wave frequency that you're running on. Deeper sleep, 21 or more scientific studies with published white papers showing up to 20 to 25% deeper REM sleep. It declusters your blood when you're not getting electrons, which electrons come from the earth. That's what your body's absorbing when you make contact with the earth. Those electrons basically neutralize a cell called a free radical. A free radical is really nothing more than a cell that's missing an electron, but missing the electron, it's unstable. So these free radicals that are produced by simply changing out bad cells, you neutralize those, you reduce the inflammation, reduce the free radicals, then your blood starts declustering. Your red blood cells aren't clumping and clotting. Now your blood viscosity is going down. Now your heart can pump blood easier. There are so many benefits to grounding. And so having something on your bed and you're grounding, there's a Dr. Mercola, who's a very famous doctor in the States. And Dr. Mercola learned about grounding through the Tour de France cycling. And what he found was that some of these foreign countries were grounding the athletes in between the times where they were actually doing their event. And so he learned about grounding. Then Dr. Mercola studied grounding. And now Dr. Mercola is reportedly, he's grounding up to 20 hours a day. He's constantly grounded. So we sell little grounding sheets for your desk and for your different things. But when you understand how powerful something like being connected to the earth is, and you realize how little any of us are, then it's all about how do I integrate this into my lifestyle? And, the grounding, you can put something on your pillow. It's not that expensive. The grounding sheets, the stuff, everything that we sell is top of the line. So 40% of the fabric on the grounding technology that we sell is actual silver, and it's coiled silver. It's not a strand of silver. If I don't know, in the UK, if you ever saw something called a slinky.
Yes, I do remember as a child having
Okay. So I always tell people, if you know what a slinky is, then you probably started on AOL because we're all in that same time frame. However, the slinky is a coiled piece of metal, and it can stretch and flex. And that's important because material, like when you're sleeping on it, pushing down on it, will need to stretch and flex. The lower price stuff is strand of silver. And when you bend it and flex it, you're eventually going to break the strand, lose conductivity. So, the grounding is important, but it's also important to find the right products because there's some products that I don't want to promote those because I want to make sure I'm putting equipment out that I'm using, that I'm testing.
There's a lot of fake out there. So this comes back to, your level of awareness and consciousness in that discernment level. So tell us let's finish up here and tell us the website so that if people want to get, or not if, when people want to get the terahertz wand or the grounding sheet, they know they're getting them from a place that's tried, true, tested, that they're getting the real deal. What's the website they should go to? And I'm assuming that you also ship worldwide.
We do. So the website would be healthylifetechnology.com.
Healthylifetechnology.com. Okay, yeah, I'll put that on the notes below the podcast and the video.
Yeah. And, the beauty of the technology for me is that people just need something that works, right? Although we can break down the science of what it does and we can get into the physics of it, which I do believe is also very important because you want to have tangible data to show why, how, and what. ultimately the stories that I've got with the people like the waitress and people with bad knees and people with all these different skin issues. I had a woman in here who was another friend that we got rid of varicose veins that she had, that she didn't want to wear shorts, and that's a whole other story. They don't care what the technology is. They just say,
Exactly.
hey, if I use this, will this help me with this? And the answer normally is going to be yes. And the whole thing really is going to be consistency of use and just, staying with it. I plug it in and have it next to me on my bed. So a lot of times I'll just pull it over and use it on my mouth, face. I'm 59. So, I want to maintain what I've got. I really just don't want to get to the point where I'm going, oh my God, my hair's falling out. I want to, I can use it to just stimulate the hair follicles, red light technology, which the terahertz wands have. And we do have red light technology also.
But this is where I'm sure we're going to speak again, Sean, because we could go into another topic here in terms of aging and longevity, and how frequency and helping the cells have the energy that they need. So you're not all used up in terms of energy, that it's regenerated, and then, you don't have the need to age. You can do things that you could do when you were in your 20s and 30s. So let's plan another talk around that.
Yes.
Because I know we're not going to be short of things to speak about.
But I'm also going to have you on my podcast, and we're going to get a chance to talk to you, because I can't wait to learn more about your daily routine. When you say that you're doing sun gazing, which I believe is what the yogis do to absorb energy through prana, which is sunset and sunrise, and you're using that to energize the body, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to you about that. And I don't want to do it on this show, but we're going to do it on my show when I get.
You're using technology to enhance what should be readily available in nature. Right. And so it's nice to find a balance between the two. So Sean, thank you so much for this engaging, interesting conversation. And we've gone in so many different directions, from the pyramids in Egypt to the pyramids in Bosnia, to crystals, to all sorts of topics here. It's been fascinating. Thank you so much, and look forward to our next conversation.
I can't wait. Such a great podcast, such a great channel. I wish you nothing but the best, and I can't wait to catch up with you again.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode with my guest, Sean Callahan, and I highly recommend you go to his website, healthylifetechnology.com, and check out all the healing technology available for purchase on that site. I know I'm going to do that. I'm thrilled as always to be sharing possibilities with you. And if you want more, then check out the link at thepossibilityhub.com. And if you feel that others can benefit from listening in, then please share, review, like, or follow me on Instagram, Carol K. Talbot, or check my YouTube channel. And remember, you're always more than you think you are.